Class number 15, Basic OSPF Part 4. In this class I will discuss about different types of link state advertisement in OSPF. So first let's look at this topology. So we have two networks. PC1 is in 10.0.0 network and PC2 is 192.168, and this is multi-area OSPF topology. We have backbone area, area 0, and we have two areas, area 1 and area 2. Okay, and there is another router R6 connected to R3 in the backbone area, and it has been configured with BGP. So the purpose of R6 in this topology is to advertise this PC3 network, which is 172.16.0.0 into OSPF. Okay, so there are two types of routers in OSPF. One is ABR and another one is ASBR. ABR stands for Area Border Router. So as its name says, ABR will have one leg connected to area 0 and another side it will be on the non-backbone area. It could be any of the non-backbone area. Okay, so in this case, if you look at this topology, R2 and R4 both are ABRs because they are connecting backbone area to another non-backbone area. So the role of ABR is it will be the bridge between two different areas. So in this case, R2 is the bridge between area 1 and area 0. So ABRs will advertise other area routes into the area. Okay. The next step is autonomous system boundary router. So in this case, we can call this entire OSPF topology, like until this part, we can consider it as one autonomous system. Okay. So the boundary router for this autonomous system is R3, because from R3 we have BGP with R6. So BGP is a different routing protocol. Okay, so from OSPF standpoint, this is whole thing OSPF network is autonomous system, and the border of this autonomous system is whatever the router connecting to a external different routing protocol. Okay, so in this case R3. Okay, so in order to for any device or anything in the network to reach the external network, it has to exit through this ASBR. Okay, so ABR is connecting to different areas, ASBR is connecting to different routing protocols. So let's see what are different types of routes we can see in this topology. So C means connected routes. So this is from the R2. So R2 will have two connected routes, one for 12 network and another for 23. And next routes we can see is O routes. O routes means OSPF routes. So we can see 10 network and 34. So 10 is here and 34 is here. Okay. So R2 is learning this OSPF route from area 0 because it is also in the area 0, and it is this part is in the area 1, so that it is learning this 10 network. Okay, so basically these two routes are related to the same area where R2 is. The next type of routes we can see O with the flag IA. So O is OSPF and IA is inter-area OSPF. So these two routes are coming from different areas. Okay, if you observe, it is one is 45, another one is 192.168. So R2 is part of area 0 and area 1, and it does not have any direct relationship with area 2, but it is learning these area 2 routes, 45 and 192. So these two are inter-area routes because they are coming from a different area. And the next type of route you can see it here is OSPF E2. So OSPF external type 2 routes. So if you look at that network, it is 172.16. In this topology, it is the network. So OSPF external means this route is in the OSPF database, but the source of the route is coming from the external routing protocol, which in this topology it is BGP. So what's happening is R6 is advertising this particular network to R3, which is the ASBR. Okay, and the ASBR advertising it back to all other areas. Okay, so that is why it is flagged as E2 external route. So let's see what are different types of link state advertisements and how they're being used in OSPF. So the LSA types starts from 1 to 11, but we are only discussing few of them. Others are not being widely used. Okay. So the first LSA type 1 is router LSA. So router LSA is every router within an area advertise about its directly connected links, means about its interface links. Okay, that's how every router in the area will know about what are all other routers in the within the same area and what networks they have. Okay, and these type of LSA updates will stay within the same area. Next type is network LSA. So network LSA is basically happens in a broadcast OSPF topology. So when you have multiple routers like 2 or 3 connected to the switch and all of them are in the same area. So in the previous class we discussed about how the designated router election happens and how the adjacency is formed, right? So in this case, these type of network LSAs only generated by the DR router in the broadcast network OSPF topology. So using these network LSA, DR router tells other routers in the network about the network ID and the subnet mask in that broadcast network and the list of attached routers. So this is also stay within the same area. So these two stay within the area. So these updates won't flood into the other areas. Okay. And the next one is type 3 summary LSA. So this is basically about inter-area routes. So who will generate these LSAs is area border router, because area border router is the bridge between different areas. So the responsibility of ABR is to generate summary SLAs so that every area will learn about the routes of different areas. Those are inter-area routes. Okay. Next, summary ASBR LSA type 4. So this is about advertising the router ID of ASBR. Okay, so it will be generated by the ABR telling all other areas what is the ASBR in that particular OSPF topology. Okay, so it is just telling all other routers using this type 4 LSA what is the router ID of the ASBR in that particular OSPF topology. And type 5 is it is generated by the ASBR and it will use this AS external SLA to mention about what are the external networks it is advertising into the OSPF topology. So ASBR generates this. And the type 7, this is also similar to type 5, but it is applicable to NSSA area types. So we will discuss what is NSSA area and what are other area types. We will discuss about this particular LSA in the next class. But for now, remember that it is similar to the type 5 only. So let's look at each LSA type with an example. So router LSA. Router LSA is basically every router need to advertise whatever the directly connected links they have with other routers in the same area. For suppose if everything is this whole topology in the same area. Okay. So each router will generate this router LSAs so that every other router in the same topology within the same area will know about what are all other routers have the networks of the other routers in this within the same area. Okay, so let's look at type 2 network LSA. So this will only happens, this will generated by the DR. So if we look at this topology, this is the only broadcast network. This is, there are only two routers directly connected. We configure it as a point-to-point link in the previous lab, right? So there will be no DR and BDR selection happens in this segment. So it will only happen in this broadcast. Okay, so in this topology, R3 will be selected as the DR because by default OSPF priority is 1, and this will be selected as the DR because it has the highest router ID, which is 3.3.3. So this type of LSA, network LSA, only generated by the DR. So it will inform all other routers within the same area what is the network ID and the subnet mask and what are the attached routers in that particular topology. Okay, so basically type 1 LSA will be advertised by every router, sent by every router in the network. Type 2 only applicable for broadcast network and DR generates those packets. Okay, so these two stay within the same area, and when you check the routing table they will be flagged with just OSPF routes. So let's look at the third one, summary LSA. In this case, ABR will generate the routers telling about other area networks. Okay, so in this topology, R2 and R4 both are ABRs because they are connecting two different areas. So if we look at the database summary link state, so this is the type 3. So these are all the this is the information learned using the type 3 LSS. So we are looking at the area 1. So this is the output from R2. So if we look at the area 1 has this network and this network, and R2 knows about this network because it has legs in two different areas, area 0 and area 1. So it does not know anything about this network and this network. If you see 192.45 network, 23 and 34. Okay, so these 4 routes not part of area 1. Okay, that's why they are called as inter-area routes. These are routes not in area 1, but they are in the area 0 and area 2. So ABR is basically sending those LSAs. So after receiving those LSAs, this database will form. Okay, so summary LSAs are generated by ABR and they are to inform other areas about the inter-area routes. So next one is summary ASBR LSA. The purpose of this LSA is to inform all other areas about who is the ASBR in this topology. So in this topology, who is autonomous system border router? R3, because it is having BGP with R6. So this is ASBR. So area border routers in this area, ABRs, will inform other areas about the ASBR router ID. Okay, so if you see, this is the database, we can see it in area 1. So in area 1 we are telling that 2.2.2 is advertising. Why 2.2 advertising? Because this is the ABR. So ABR purpose is to tell other area routes, right? So for that it is using type 3. It is using type 4 to tell about ASBR information, ASBR router ID. If you see, it is telling that 3.3.3 is the ASBR and it is advertised by ABR. Okay, so R3 is the ASBR and R2 is sending that information to this area. Similarly, R4 will do the same thing to area 2. Okay, so type 5. So this is the AS external LSA. This will be generated by the ASBR. So if you see, this is the type 5 LSA information. 3.3.3 advertising about this network. So in this case 3.3.3 R3, which is ASBR. So ASBR is generating or advertising this LSA about the route which has it learned from the external routing protocol. In this case it learned this network from BGP. So it is forwarding that information everywhere. Okay, so let's look at all the LSA types in this topology. Router, so this is the LSA type 1. So if we look at area 1, so this is area 1 LSA type 1. So R1 and R2, R1 and R2 advertising the type 1 because those are the only two routers in this area 1, and every router will advertise this LSAs. Next one, network link. So this usually will be advertised by DR. So even though we have only two routers directly connected, we didn't configure this as a point-to-point link. That's why DR BDR election happens and R2 will become the DR, because default priority will be 1 for both, as the router ID of router 2 is highest compared to R1. So that's why it is selected as the DR, and this is generating the LSA about its network ID and the attached routers using this LSA. Next one, summary LSA. This will be generated by ABR. ABR will tell other area routes. If you see, advertised by ABR. In this case, what is the ABR for area 1? R2. R2 is advertising routes of different areas. In this case, area 0 routes and area 2 routes. Okay. And next one, ASBR summary link. So this is type 4, and this will be generated by the ABR only. So for area 1, ABR is R2. Okay, so R2 will generate this LSA telling the router ID of ASBR. ASBR router ID. Okay. Then type 5 LSA. This will be generated by the ASBR. So who is ASBR in this topology? R3. R3 will generate this LSA and it will inform about the external routes. So in this, what is the external route? The route learned by the BGP. In this case it is 172.16.0.0. Okay. So assignment for this class is build this topology, and in this topology you will only see type 1 and 2 LSAs only. So type 2 you should see it here, type 1 you should see everywhere. Okay. So as everything is part of the same area, you don't see any inter-area routes or type 3 LSAs or 4 or 5, because there is no ASPR, there is no ABR. So you shouldn't see 3, 4, 5 in this topology. Next, try to build this topology. In this topology you should be able to see type 3 LSAs as well, including 1 and 2, 3. Okay. So there is no ASBR here in this topology. So you won't see any type 4 or 5 LSAs. Okay. So we will do that in the next classes. Adding an ASPR with the BGP when we learn about the BGP. Okay. For now, build these two labs and verify LSA types 1, 2 and 3. That's all for today, and we'll see you in the next class where we will discuss about different OSPF area types, where we will discuss about type 7 LSA in NSSA area. Thank you.